And we're live, folks. Welcome to the Next Level Awakening podcast. I am your host, Darvin Osiris. Hope you guys are doing amazing. And I just want to say, how are we vibrating? Wanted to ask, things like that. But I'm back with a new revamped podcast. The last podcast that I had was Darvin's Prophecy. And, I just gave up. Not gave up, but I just stopped doing it. I got lazy. Didn't have much to talk about. This was like 2 years ago. But I'm back with a new and fresh feel to my podcast. Next Level Awakening, I think, is very fitting with the mode that I want to do. It's about spiritual elevation, physical elevation, emotional elevation, and so many other things. I can tackle history, science, spirituality, and what is the last thing I wanted to touch on? Genealogy, whatever it may be. I can't think about the last word, but I'm not going to ponder on it too much. So this first episode, a fresh start. This first episode is about knowing thyself. So when it comes to knowing thyself, you can know yourself on many different levels. Spiritually, physically, mentally, emotionally, so many other things. And I'm going to touch on all four. So I'm going to start off with mentally. So mentally, we have many things that we latch onto mentally in life. So knowing our mentality, knowing our mental is about knowing our thoughts, what we think about, understanding that all our thoughts aren't ours. We getting it down to energy, frequency, and vibration. That's what everything breaks down to. So everything is energy, frequency, and vibration. So when you think about frequency, think about thoughts, like your thoughts, the waves that your thoughts come about. So with that being said, once we get these thoughts and we keen in on these thoughts, like, where's these thoughts coming from? Where are these thoughts coming from? Are they coming from the subconscious mind? Are they coming from the gut? Are they coming from the heart? Because we have three brains. We have the brain in our head. We have the brain in our heart. We have the brain in our gut. These are the three brains that we have. The first brain is the heart brain. Second brain is the gut brain. Last brain is the brain that's in our head. So once we gather where our thoughts are coming from, the outer interferences that may be attached to it, because we have outer energies and vibrations that are reflecting off of us. So you ever have a similar thought to someone? That's where I'm going with this. You can pick up on the same frequency, the same thought as someone else, and you just look at that person maybe awkwardly or like in public, things like that. So that's one way, just knowing and understanding our thoughts, whether they come from us, whether it's coming from our ancestors, our guiding spirits. So this is a spiritual podcast for those that aren't aware. Well, I don't think anybody really is aware because this is my first episode of this revamped podcast, but you get the gist. So I'm touching on a spiritual background, coming from a spiritual mindset and perspective. This is, anyone can listen to it. Anyone that has an open mind. Anyone that has an open mind can listen to this. If you don't have an open mind, or you just, have any type of prejudice against spiritualists, things like that, then this might not be the podcast for you. So going back, I might get sidetracked here and there, but going back to what I was saying about knowing thyself, knowing your thoughts, where is the thoughts coming from? That's one. Where are the thoughts coming from? Are they coming from trauma? Is it trauma-based thoughts? Are they thoughts that are in the moment, thoughts that come from the past, thoughts that are about the future? Are you worried? Are you worried in the moment? Are you worried about the future? Are you worried about the past catching up to you? Are you worried about what's going on in the present, your current situation? So all of this can come from trauma, understanding where our thoughts come from. So if they're coming from yourself, when you have a thought, take the time to dissect that thought. Do I have a feeling behind this? Where is this coming from? Is this coming from the past, present, the future? Or am I, things like that. So that's how once you start understanding and knowing your thought patterns, you can utilize your thoughts to manifest. So knowing thyself can be about manifestation too. Everybody talks about manifestation, like, oh, how can I manifest this? How can I manifest that? What do I need to do? This, and this. Just take the time to elevate and examine your thoughts and, decipher, is this you? Is this an outer influence? And things like that. Next, I'm going to talk about emotions, like knowing yourself emotionally. So what triggers you? What are the things that triggers you? So the key thing in spiritual elevation and knowledge of self, or this journey, is about shadow work and ancestral veneration. I'm gonna touch on ancestral veneration on another episode. So yeah, but ancestral veneration, all right, that thoughts that came to me. I'm basically freestyling. I don't have anything written down. So ancestral veneration is out the way, but Spirit is telling me to talk about ancestral veneration. So your ancestors are your foot soldiers, basically, in the spirit realm and in the physical realm. So the ancestors that you know physically, they're your strongest force that is with you. So that's what Spirit wanted me to say in regards to that. So there you go. But what I was going to get to when it comes to knowing yourself emotionally in shadow work. Shadow work is you going within and self-reflecting. This is a stage of you knowing thyself. Now, when it comes to shadow work and you're emotional yourself and emotion, what makes you happy? What makes you sad? What makes you angry? What triggers you? Once we take the time to look within and understand what triggers us, even overstand too, what triggers us, what makes us happy. So, like, think to yourself, what makes you happy? Is it art? Was it like music? Is it sports? Is it the person that you're with? Is it your family? Is it your job? Is it going to school, college, whatever you're doing? What makes you happy? Ponder on that and think to yourself, is it outside of me that makes me happy? Or is it internal things? Is it something, a void that I'm trying to fill? Because, a lot of the things that make us happy can, come from trauma, be a coping mechanism, like buying like dessert or something can make someone happy because, what they get from eating that dessert and things like that can bring joy, can make things easier for them. I'm not like, is it dopamine? I'm not going to get too deep into the science about that because it's, I'm freestyling. So I can't think of it off the top of my head, but I believe it's dopamine. But, is it an external thing? Is it based off, trauma? Or is it, something that genuinely just makes you happy? So, yeah, this is what shadow work does. And then I first keyed in on the triggers. So what triggers you? Triggering. Well, like, what triggers you? Because what triggers us is what helps us grow a bit. And I'm not even going to say a bit. It just helps us grow. It helps us get out of our comfort zone. Like, oh, I'm not comfortable doing this. I'm not comfortable talking about this. Getting out of your comfort zone is very essential in your elevation as a person. This doesn't even have to be a spiritual thing. This could just be like everyday life. Some of us may not be comfortable with taking tests. You want to get a degree, even get your diploma, whatever, whoever's listening to this. I mark this down as explicit because I might slip up and cuss. So for the most part, I'm getting sidetracked again. But for the most part, I'm going to keep this as clean as possible. So with that being said, when it comes to what triggers us or what makes us and gets us out of this comfort zone, I had an analogy about school. Some of us aren't comfortable with taking tests. That's the thought. There we go. Back on track. Some of us aren't comfortable with taking tests. Some of us get test anxiety. Some of us might, what I learned in college, is some of us get writer's block. Like, it's a blockage that comes during the test and we forget. So there's ways to fight for writer's block. But, getting comfortable with taking the test, getting comfortable of actually studying, because you can study and still go blank. Just getting comfortable with being in a testing environment where it might just be a lot of pressure. So there's different things. So I'm going to touch on something that's vital. I forgot this is vital too. Shadow work, ancestral veneration, and breath work. Breath work is very vital because our breath is basically our spirit. Because if you think about etymology, we're going to play some etymology games. Like, oh, you're playing etymology games. Spirit comes from the word spiritus, which means breath or to breathe. So if we think about our breath, that's basically our spirit. That's what we release out into the world. That's the energy that we carry. It flows through our body, our respiratory system. And so, with that being said, your breath is what centers you and aligns your mind, your body, and your spirit with what would be your breath. So it aligns all of this together. So getting out of this state of anxiety or pressure, just breathing. And also, if I happen to have a blockage, like, oh, I know this, I studied so hard, well, how did I forget it so quickly? Just write anything. Just, if you can, some tests, maybe Scantron, can't really write on anything. And, your teacher might, oh, don't write on this. Just think, or just write, get the writing. It'll come back to you and things like that. So, yeah, but breathing, breathing is very essential in your growth, in your elevation. Just breathe. There's so many breathing techniques I could go about. I'm not going to demonstrate that because I'm not in front of a camera. I'm just, listening. I'm just sitting on Clubhouse. I'm actually on Clubhouse while I'm recording this. I'm having people in the audience. Shout out to those who's in the audience. There's one person. I'm also on Clubhouse. I'll have time and space for those who want to ask questions, later after I'm done recording this. So that's another thing. But yeah, knowing yourself emotionally is very key to your spiritual elevation. And when it comes to knowing thyself, because I'm going to touch on this, a bunch of spiritual systems, ancient, even, religions too, they talk about knowing thyself. And that is very essential because you're the only person that you come into this lifetime with. You're going to leave, unless you're like a twin, triplet or something. But for the most part, you're coming into this world alone. And you're most likely going to die alone. So yeah, knowing thyself is very important. So the next thing I'm going to touch on, this is going to be pretty lengthy when it comes to like the physicality. So knowing yourself physically. So more than just what's your physical feats, like how strong you are, how tall you are, how muscular you are, how what shape you are, things like that. More than that, knowing yourself physically, like your family, like what's your family's history, what's your history. I'm giving a spoiler. My next episode is going to be about history versus mystery. So basically his story and my story, but that's besides the point. But yeah, just knowing yourself on a physical scale, like, all right, who am I? What's my characteristics? Okay, one of the first things people touch on, because it's a thing, is, okay, what's my race? Am I black? Which is a societal, social status type of term, in America and things like that. Like, what's my race? Okay, you could say you're black, white, Asian, well, like Chinese or Japanese. Or yeah, we go, what's my nationality? What's my nationality? I'm American, Mexican, European. Well, European is not a nationality, like Italian. That'd be a better just. Here I go, getting off subject. But yeah, bringing it back. So we ask ourselves so many things. All right, how tall am I? Let's just say I'm 6'2", I'm 6'2", 6'3", whatever. What my weight? Ladies might not want to answer that. But yeah, just an example. Wow, just an example. Like, we ask ourselves this. Okay, who am I related to? Like, who are my parents? Some people might not have the fortune of actually knowing their parents or knowing both their parents and things like that. So who are my parents? Who raised me? Who is my guardian? Who are my siblings, if you have siblings? Who are my aunts? Who are my uncles? Who are my cousins? What I'm getting to this, like, knowing thyself, like, a lot of us in the Americas, if you're black, we don't have that privilege of knowing who we are on a physical scale. So that's why I am keening in on this history of yourself, history of self, or your story, our story, which would be you and your family's story, So with that being said, that's why I'm keeping it in previewing, because, I am what you would call black myself in America, making this podcast. I'm going to be recording this at 7 p.m. every Thursday, so be mindful of that. With that being said, we are in a place where our nationality was given to us. Our identity was given to us. They slapped that term African American onto us. You can say they slapped that term black onto us and things like that. So it's just very privy of finding out who you really are. And I'm an advocate of actually finding out who you really are. If you came from Africa, reconnecting with that land, reconnecting to your ancestors on that land, whether it's from in West Africa, somewhere like Ghana, Nigeria, Mali, wherever it may be, or, Central Africa, whether it be the Congo. Is Senegal? I want to be wrong about this being accurate. But I believe Senegal is in Central Africa. Even some people were brought from South Africa. What I found very interesting, my boy was doing his own genealogy, and he said, he has ancestors that came from South Africa. That's very interesting. So what, people in South Africa, whether, just reconnecting to those ancestors on that landmass, and then, you have the old Aboriginal thing, or being the American Indian thing, whether you find yourself that have ancestors that were a part of many different, I'll say, for lack of better terms, Indian tribes, whether it be Seminole, Choctaw, what else, Cherokee or Ani-Yunwaya, things like that. So finding yourself out on this scale of where your ancestors are truly from. I'm going to make this disclaimer. This is geared towards, this podcast in general is geared more towards those who are what you would consider black or melanated. So yeah, doing your family history will benefit you greatly, because a lot of us do not have that fortune of knowing where we come from truly in that nationality. So yeah, knowing yourself on a physical sense or physical scale is also great, because you'll know who your ancestors are. It'll be easier for you to connect to your ancestors, because your ancestors are your grandparents. Your ancestors are your grandparents. And if it's unfortunate to, my bad, I was coughing. I might have to edit that out. But with that being said, to be fortunate to know your parents, to know their parents, and even if you can go back, who knows how many generations you can actually go back? Because a lot of people can go back so many generations. Me personally, I've been able to go back at least 8-9 generations. Though that's amazing within itself. So a lot of people aren't that fortunate. But to get back to the point, knowing your grandparents are your guardians to the spirit realm. They're the ones who introduce us. I can just tie into the spiritual. This is a great tie-in. But yeah, they're the ones who connect us to the spiritual realm. They're our guardians. So I'll say, for example, a lot of our grandmothers, they're the ones who introduced us to, whether it's for religion. A lot of us grew up on Christianity. I say personally, my grandmother allowed me and entered me to get into spirituality through religion. Going to church with her every Sunday, way early. Who knows how early it was in the morning, driving so at least an hour, like 30 minutes to an hour to this church, and just being introduced to what God would be, the concept of God, what God is, or maybe into different perspectives, whether it be, whether your belief or, I'm spiritual. So even my belief of God is pretty different than some spiritualists, because they still believe in what do I want to say, a monotheistic type of God that similar to the Abrahamic God. This ain't no disrespect, I'll just say that. But yeah, my thoughts on perspectives, what people's thoughts of God should be subjective, but that's a whole different story and things like that, I'll just say. But yeah, back to what I was saying, a lot of our grandparents They're the ones who introduce us to spirituality, whether it's going to church or you're just around them and they're talking about God, Jesus, Lord, things like that. So our grandparents, are our gatekeepers to spirituality, and they go and they teach us so many things about like the world. If you have that ability, if you're fortunate enough to be around and be around your grandparents and things like that, and knowing your parents. I'm not saying our parents don't introduce us to spirituality anyway, but it's usually like the grandparents that set that stone of the foundation of how our spiritual or religious blueprint will go. Because they're our guardians, they're our gatekeepers, they're the closest to the ancestors, because most of a lot of people's great don't get to meet their great grandparents, but fortunately some of us do, a lot of us do, and I was fortunate enough to do that. So great grandfather. So I'm gonna go into the spirituality part, knowing thyself on a spiritual scale. So there's a thing in spirituality called the Akashic Records. The Akashic Records is a library that's within you. So I'm gonna go with this approach because I learned and gathered and have downloads to myself. I learned from one of the great occult teachers, probably the greatest occult teacher, honestly, Bobby Hemmett, and his breakdown of the Akashic Records is basically tap into the intelligence that melanated people have, which is melanin. Tapping into your melanin, basically the melanin records going within. But for simple terms, it's like going within, doing shadow work, doing self realizations, and getting downloads from your spirit guides, your ancestors, your guardian angels of who you were in a past life. So past life regression. There's so many ways you can do it. You can get it through a reading, like tarot card, oracle card. What else? A meditation, going to see a spiritual advisor, life coach, counselor, whatever that person is. I mean, maybe consultant. So whatever that avenue may be, just learning who you are spiritually through the Akashic Records and going to a past life. So your past life could have been you being a farmer in like 1700 or something, or you being a king in an ancient king or queen in an ancient civilization, like maybe ancient Mali, maybe being a chief, tribal chief somewhere, maybe in ancient America or ancient Fiji, anywhere in the world, and we come into this current lifetime with that without that knowledge, and restoring that knowledge of who we were in the past life. Because I'm gonna say this: time does not exist in the way that we think it does. I'm gonna say it. Well, I'm not gonna say it as a fact. You can take this as my opinion. You can take this as a theory. But time, to me, I'll say, is not linear. It is not linear. Even in how we tell times with an actual clock, we have our digital watches and stuff now. So telling time with the clock is different now. This technology everything going digital. But if you tell time with a clock, or like a hand clock, I believe that's the correct term. And you can see that the hands, they go in a circle. So time is a cycle. It's told in a circle. So you think about a circle and a cycle, that's what time basically is. That is, many civilizations have counted time in that way. And if you are into astrology, the zodiac wheel goes in a circle, starting with Aries, then you get Taurus, then you get Gemini, then you get Cancer, then Leo, then Virgo, then Libra, then Scorpio, then Sagittarius, then Capricorn, then Aquarius, then Pisces, and it resets back at Aries. So it's going in a circle, and it goes through cycles. Because seasons, we think of seasons, that's cycles too. So, we have cycles. Well, depending on how you think the year starts, you know, society, Western civilization believes, where was I going? Believes that a new year starts in January, so it being in winter, but you know, life starts and things start to grow during the spring equinox, so it technically starts in Aries season. But you know, I'm not forcing my beliefs onto people. You know, you can think for yourself on here. This is this podcast is for open-minded people. That's what I'm gonna say. That being said, time going in a cycle. We go through seasons, months, like 3 months to a zodiac season. Well, a month to a zodiac season. 3 months to a season monthly, if you get what I mean. So yeah, you know, spring, summer, fall, winter, things like that. That being said, with time being in a cycle and not linear, that means all timelines exist at the same time. All timelines exist at the same time. What do I mean by that? So your past, your present, your future, and here's another thing, the parallel, if you want to go super deep into a multiverse theory or things like that, if you believe in that, they all exist at the same time. So what has happened in the past is also happening in the present, which is also happening in the future, and it's also, well, the parallel would be, if you want to go, use your imagination when it comes to the parallel. So whatever you envision your parallel life being, just, you know, leave it at that. With that being said, all these things are happening at the same time. This is why history tends to repeat itself. You know, this is why history tends to repeat itself. Things that have happened and like, you know, things that are going on with black people in the United States, you know, police brutality, like lynching and things like that has happened in like 1950, 40, 30 is happening in 2021 because the past, the present, and the future are all happening at the same time. But we have more power in the present. That's what I was going to say. We have more power in the present. Our power is in the present. That's because that's the current timeline that we're at. Our energy is actually in, and we can do things about it. That's why whatever actions that you could do, you can either get caught up into the past, or you can heal yourself from the past, and you can mess up your future by worrying, stressing yourself out. I'll have an episode on manifestation. We can get into that. Stressing yourself out, things like, or you can create a great foundation for your future in the present moment by, you know, maybe doing what is necessary and stop procrastinating on things that you should be doing. This is me talking to myself because I should have been kept at this podcast, but we're here now after a 2-year halt of me not recording from a microphone, basically allowing my mic to collect dust. But that's a different topic of discussion. But yeah, I'm back doing so. Do what you want to do now. Do what you want to do in the present moment. That is why I'm saying, hope this inspires someone to, you know, finally take the time to do it, whether it's start up that business, whether it's, you know, start a podcast like me, whether it's going to school again, going back to school, whether it's leaving that job, whatever it is, go out and do it. You have the power now to do it. And this is me speaking to myself who procrastinates a lot, not just to the audience that is listening. I appreciate this one person that's here because I enjoy it. I enjoy being in this space. I enjoy talking. Yeah, I'm not talking to anybody in particular right now because I'm saving questions for later. But I appreciate the energy of socializing. I appreciate platforms like Clubhouse. I appreciate being in social environments. I'm getting way off topic. But yeah, I'm just speaking off the heart, from the heart, speaking off the spirit and things like that. But I'm going to get back to it. I'm going to get back to the topic because I'm really excited about talking about this stuff. The Akashic Records. You know, or it doesn't even have to be that deep. It doesn't even have to just be just a past life. Knowing yourself spiritually, knowing your energy, knowing your breath, the energy that you carry, the vibes that you carry, your aura, knowing your aura, like your energetic electromagnetic field that repels off of you and that people can pick up on. They can pick up on your vibrations too. they can pick up on your vibrations too. Always remember that. So, knowing yourself on a spiritual level, learn your breathing patterns. I talked about breathing. I talked about breath work. Understanding your breathing patterns. Like, when you need to breathe, how you're breathing. Just being aware. This is something that I had to teach myself. I was like, dang. I came to a realization this year. Magically, thankfully, I came on this reflection this year of, hey, I am going to keen in on my breath and my breathing. Because we think about spirituality and our spiritual journey, it's about our breath at the end of the day. And our breath is our energy. I'm a certified Reiki master. So when they talk about the Reiki or the Chi energy, that's basically, just breathing, because they tell you to meditate and allow the energy to flow through you and things of that nature. So, yeah, it's a great thing. It's a great experience once you finally come into that power and realizing that. So knowing yourself on a spiritual level, more than just your Akashic records, just how you are as a person. I'm going to say this. Allow yourself to be vulnerable. Again, speaking to myself, allow yourself to feel every emotion. Because I can go on a whole tangent and a rant about this. But if you've been on social media, if you've been around people that are just getting onto their spiritual journey, watching these influencers, they all carry the stigma of love and light, and I'm going to go into that. Of love and light only, and they want you to neglect something called shadow work. There's an agenda behind that, because we're going to get deep onto this, and when I start getting into the conspiracies and stuff, there's people that only go into a light worker side of themselves. They want to see everything as peaches and cream, and that they ignore what is truly within them. They ignore what they need to work on. I was a part of that stuff too. I'm not gonna lie, I was a part of that stuff too. But once we neglect certain things, they're gonna come back up. Our trauma is gonna come back up. I'll just say that. Our trauma is gonna come back up again. It's gonna resurface. But what are you gonna do about it when it resurfaces? What are you gonna tuck your tail in and shove it deep inside a closet, deep inside whatever, and bury it still? Or are you going to address it head on? There's things that I had to do myself this year. Like, I just started getting real privy to the shadow. Like, actually, I've been doing shadow work, honestly, probably about maybe 3 years. Oh, excuse me. Maybe 3 years. And I didn't really get into it intense the way I should have until this year, till recently, things like that. Like, oh, okay, I should really work on this. Like, I really should work on this, because it's revisiting the shadow work I did before hasn't really been helping, and it's a way to check your ego. I'm gonna get into ego death too on another episode, but yeah, really checking your ego. I wouldn't even say an ego death, an ego transcendence. An ego, just lighting up on your ego, because, our ego is here to protect us, and you don't want to be overprotective of yourself. We can be overprotective to those around us. You're just being that overprotective parent to yourself. Doesn't allow yourself to live and have fun and make mistakes. So we're not perfect. Once you're in this mode of being an influencer of some sorts, whether it's on a micro level or macro level, things like that, people are going to hold you up to a certain image just by off the image. Maybe not necessarily that you created for yourself, but the way that they see you, the energy that you put out into the world. They look at you as a role model, an idol even. Maybe, yeah, adult. It's not I was about to say adultery. Idol worship, whatever the word is for idol worship, whatever that word is, I can't think of it at the moment. Is it idolatry? I think it's idolatry. So somebody can correct me on that later. However they're gonna hear this, whether it's on Spotify, Google Podcasts. This is gonna be on 6 different platforms, even Anchor. Can you leave comments on Anchor? Whatever. That's besides the point. I always get off topic and sidetracked a bit because, I'm not going off a script. I'm just freestyling and seeing where it's going. I hope it's going actually well. I believe it's going well. But yeah, with that being said, just be mindful of knowing thyself on a spiritual level. Be mindful of the energy that you put out. Be mindful of your emotions. Be mindful of how you act. Be mindful of how you react. A lot of what we're aware. A lot of us are just aware of how we act. Like, okay, I just act this way. Maybe it's trauma based, maybe it's not, whatever. Maybe we just act. We're aware of how we act. Some of us may not be aware of how we react. You ever heard the saying, don't react, respond? So a lot of us react out of trauma, and we don't realize that in certain situations that we're in, we're subconsciously triggered. We're subconsciously triggered by things, and we may not be aware of that. So we just, dang, why am I acting like this? Why am I reacting like this? So that's the key thing to shadow work. Like, I think a big takeaway from this is knowing your triggers, honestly. Like, knowing thyself and knowing your strengths, knowing your weaknesses, knowing your positives, knowing your negatives, knowing when you can get out of hand, knowing when your, I guess, ego is tripping, knowing when you're going overboard on things. And if I start to cough, that's because I haven't talked this long in a minute. Like, talk this long to myself, basically, for a while. It's been, it's been about a year. It's been about a year because I did stop going live like that too. But just being back at this it's amazing, But yeah, the key takeaway from this is knowing your triggers. So I touched on many different things. Knowing thyself on a physical level, spiritual level, emotional level, and a mental level. Those are the 4 points of today's episode. This might be a quick one. Not even a quick. I've been at it 30 minutes. This is like 30 minutes worth of audio. So this is an amazing kickoff. I'm glad to be back at this. And yeah, I think I can wrap it up for today. I'm going to talk about history and mystery. But yeah, I appreciate those who are going to tune in. I appreciate this one person that showed up. And yeah, much love to you guys. I'm out. Peace. And keep your vibrations high. Thank you.